Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar on Mastering Office Operations with Dynamics 365 Field Service. My name is Sabrina Zamera. I'm the Director of Demand Generation here at Velosio, and I just wanted to take a moment to welcome you and let everyone know that you are currently muted, but we want this to be as interactive as possible. So if you have questions as we go throughout today's presentation, please put those in the chat and we will make sure to answer all of those questions at the end of the presentation today. This session is being recorded, and following the session, you're going to receive a bunch of resources from us, some additional information, and a copy of this recording. Our presenters today, we have Bill Malone. He is a Dynamics technical specialist from Microsoft. And we also have Dave Sigler on the line. He's a consulting manager here at Velosio. With that, I will go ahead and pass it over to them.
Thanks, Sabrina. All right, as you mentioned, we're going to talk about mastering Office optimization. So this is just a agenda of what we're going to go through. We're going to do a brief introduction of Bill and myself, just give you a little more understanding who we are. We'll talk about discussion points, a customer story problem statement, customer story solution, and customer story outcomes, which will tee off and let Bill take over with a demo to show you some solutions within Dynamics. So the first thing I want to put out here is a poll question. And that poll question is, what are your biggest challenges in dispatching resources? It could be work order resource skills alignment, work order incident identification, territory resource alignment, visibility of planned maintenance, or tracking resource assignments, or it could be a multiple of those. So we'll put that into the chat. Now we'll get into an introduction. I'm Dave Sigler with Velosio. I'm the field service practice lead. I've got over 25 years of field service real world experience, and I've been in the Microsoft space for over 10 years. Bill?
Hello, my name is Bill Malone. As you can see, I'm a technical specialist at Microsoft. I've been here nearly 20 years and working with formerly Dynamics CRM, now Dynamics Customer Engagement for at least half of my career at Microsoft.
Thanks, Bill. All right, so some of the discussion points here. So what we want to talk about is how to optimize internal processes utilizing Dynamics 365. So in order for us to kind of show you what we've done in the past and kind of show you how to make your processes more efficient, what I want to do is tell you a customer story, an actual client that came to us with a problem. They were having problems with efficiencies within their process. We came up with a solution, and then I want to talk about the outcomes from the implementation that we put in place, and that will tee off and let Bill do a demo and show you some of the native functionality of Dynamics, and then these native functionalities are just out of the box pieces. So the customer story and the problem statement, we had a client come to us and they had a big problem dispatching their resources, and there was multiple pieces of that process that they had problems with. One of the first things I want to talk about is planned maintenance. These were like PMs, preventive maintenance, or planned service calls where they actually had to go out and do upgrades or items like that. They had no visibility on the planned maintenance. It was spreadsheets handled by coordinators or dispatchers, and they really had a problem finishing them efficiently. So their completion rate was only a 75% completion rate, finishing these on time. Skill alignment. They also had an issue with aligning the proper resources with the proper skills to jobs. So what happens is their first time fix rates dropped. So you would send a underskilled technician on site. They were unable to fix it. Then you would end up having to send somebody else out. So the first time fix rates, it was low. It was like 78%. Territories. The way they had their territory structured was state-based. They had resources that were only allowed to work on equipment within the state. So if anything was across the border, they didn't have visibility into sending resources to fix those. So a result of that is their repair SLAs were only 82% to meet that repair SLA. Document management, the resources were using paper documents. So they would have to hand carry all these documents. They would have to hand write them, turn them in, email them. So a lot of these documents got lost, and they either or they were using the wrong revision of those documents. Dispatching. They were tracking their dispatching through Excel, scheduling their techs through Excel. So they would have a Excel spreadsheet that had dates on it, and they would dictate which technician would be at what place during those times. So across the board, they had no visibility within the organization. So that was their problem statement. They had a lot of issues with their dispatching and their resources in the field. So what we did was we went in, understood their process, understood the holes, and then we came back and we gave a solution, and we bid a design and a build. And what we utilized was Dynamics 365. And Bill will show you these items later. But these were out of the box native functionality of Dynamics. So for the planned maintenance, we utilized the Dynamics 365 field service agreements. This is a way to set up recurring maintenance, so that you can auto generate work orders, so you have visibility into what needs to be completed. Skill alignment. We utilize characteristics and incident types, and Bill will get more in depth with this later. But incident types are kind of like a work order template, where it says who, what, and where. I mean, not where, but who and what need to go to complete this work. And then territories. So what we ended up doing is adding regional territories, and just opening it up a little bit so that their technicians could cross over state borders. This allowed for, if there was a tech with closer proximity, but they lived across the border, they can go over and work on work orders. And then document management, we added inspections, which are another piece of Dynamics, which is just allows technicians to actually do the paperwork with their mobile device, and you're able to maintain the rev control of it. And then dispatching, utilizing the schedule boards. When you see this, it's going to be eye-popping to you when Bill shows it to you. It's really ease of use. It's really easy to use, and you can dictate by regions and by what resources you want to populate on that schedule board. And also another key point is this org wide. So anybody can go in and look at this and see where all the resources are real time. So what were some of those outcomes from this solution? So the planned maintenance, it jumped up to 98% completion rate. Their skill alignment, this allowed them to start aligning the proper skill sets that were required for the work orders. So it improved their first time fix rates by 95%. And then the territories, their repair SLA jumped up to 99.2%. Big improvement. And then their document management resources had the latest revision of their documents, and they had it in the palm of their hands. So they didn't have to carry paperwork around with them. There's no loss of paperwork. And then the dispatch, as I mentioned earlier, it's just an org-wide visibility now. You can see it from management down to the technician, see where everybody is at one time. And you get the proper alignment by knowing who's closer, which resource is closer, who can get to the job faster, the proper skill set, and all those things. So in a nutshell, as you see, customer came to us with a big problem. They had problems with dispatching, aligning their work with their resources, who, what, and where. And then we came up with a solution utilizing Dynamics, which is using the native functionality, and then had huge outcomes on their efficiency and productivity. And now I will kick it off to Bill to show you the nice little demo.
Thank you. Got to make sure I get the right screen shared. All right, does that look like it's coming through?
We're not seeing it yet. There we go. Now I see your screen that says Y Field Service Management.
Oh, perfect. So that was a great customer story that included, a view of the requirements that they had in their service business, but also some of the objectives that they were trying to achieve. And, anecdotally, we hear these kinds of stories a lot, and it's everything from, I want to improve key service metrics like first time resolution, or SLAs for completion of work over the course of time, to even simpler anecdotes like, I lose a tremendous amount of money and time because my service workers lose their receipts that they used at the parts store on the floor of their truck, or inventory's leaking out of my business and I can't figure out why. I think it's connected to the fact that technicians take so much stuff home, so many parts, spare parts, replacements or loaners, and we don't track it. It's kind of a black hole that sometimes those go into. And, from there to all the way, like, I think I'm leaking inventory out of the garages for my technicians. Missed paperwork due to the use of paper-based scheduling, where they're carrying around a stack of work orders, or even, spreadsheet-based or email-based scheduling. No visibility in each of those scenarios in terms of inventory consumed, or where it's at, where my people are at, and how much time they're spending across the day. So field service management, when you think about the whys, it's about, as David said, getting the right person in the right place at the right time, and that person has the skills that they need to do that job, skills or certifications, and the right equipment as well as inventory to do the job. We'll take a look at these problems in the course of a flow of scheduling work to work completion by the technician. And then they've used a few terms like incident type and agreements. We're going to take a look at each of those. But incident type is the record that connects the resource with the correct skills and certifications to the job, and including all the parts and or equipment and work instructions that they might need, including documents. And then we'll also take a look at agreements, which are the type of record that you use in Dynamics in order to set up recurring maintenance or preventive maintenance schedules, that type of work. And that, when you think of that, it's automatically generating the work orders that have to happen on a monthly maintenance schedule, or a quarterly or a biannually or annual maintenance schedule. At the end of the day, work has dramatically evolved in this category of field service software and solutions. And perhaps there's more to it now than you might first think when you think of dispatching technicians to go out in the field and complete jobs for our customers, or to do work within the factory or on the floor or in the buildings. Connected field service implies not only connecting the things we've already talked about, the right people, the right inventory, the right skills to the right location, but also connecting in terms of remotely monitoring assets, whatever they may be. If they include sensors that are IoT based and we can connect to them, we can monitor. And as we monitor, we can begin to predict failure. We can monitor for statistics that are indicative of pending failure. And we can preempt downtime as a result. So we can get very predictive, not only in analyzing a well-structured field service business in software, but also in taking into consideration some of these new technologies like remotely managing and monitoring assets. And then there's also an added area that is really gained traction in the last 3 years, particularly when COVID happened, and that is in the notion of remote assist. So getting visual tools in the hands of not only our technicians, but perhaps our customers. In the case of COVID, I talked to numerous customers that purchased inexpensive tablets, like think Android tablets, sent them to their customers so that their customers could use the camera on that tablet to connect. So it's a fascinating realm. It's evolved dramatically, and the COVID-19 era really threw it into high gear. When you think of generating work, you know, across different business types, work comes in different ways that can end up being a work order. As my first example, might not be one you think of, but when you market to your customers, you sell them product or assets. Sometimes those things need to be delivered and or installed or set up. And so a marketing through sales process could generate a work order for delivery, for install, for setup. There could be situations where your customers start by trying to self-service. They're looking up things on your website. Think of the knowledge base that you might post to your website to help customers along. If that doesn't work, an agent gets involved, maybe through the website, maybe through chat, maybe through calling in on the phone or sending an email. Ultimately, when the customer support rep decides they can't help solve that problem over the phone, now they have to roll a truck. So a work order results. That whole IoT cloud-based scenario where we're monitoring assets remotely and we're predicting failures based on statistics that we've mined and analyzed over time, or obviously spotting a hard outage when something goes down. The whole preventive side of business, where we have to schedule recurring work orders in order to conduct regular inspections and or maintenance of assets. So recurrent scheduling, and of course, recurrent billing goes hand in hand with recurrent scheduling. Then finally, another kind of COVID amplified scenario, if you will. During COVID, only minimal employees from any given organization could get in front of customers, see them personally. In some cases, no employees could meet face-to-face with your customers. Well, in that light, service technicians, which tends to be higher priority, we got to get things fixed and keep things running, they became the only human face to touch our customers for a time period. And that dramatically shined a light on, well, if they're touching the customer, they should also be suggesting additional work that could be done, or perhaps additional services or products that we could sell. So lots of areas that could spawn a work order across different business types. We're going to take a look at 2 of these 5 scenarios in the demo. We're going to look at what it looks like when a customer gets in touch with you and asks for help. And then we're going to look at the recurring maintenance, the preventive maintenance scheduling aspects of field service. But recall, each of these scenarios can touch or ultimately result in a work order. And each of these scenarios touches different parts of your solution set. You know, when we're talking about now a connected cloud from in this top scenario, from marketing to sales across that continuum, ultimately ending up in a work order. Or this relatively new concept of monitoring a cloud-based sensor, routing that then through your customer service to field service system. So lots of scenarios with different solutions that might be involved. With that, let me see if I can stop my slide share for a moment. I'm going to slip into some demonstration. And we're going to take a look at the scenario of working with a customer that's called us for help. All right, now you should be seeing my Dynamics instance. And what we're looking at in this screen is a customer service rep might be using this type of an interface where the customer has called in. I have on my left-hand side a list of the cases I, as a customer service worker, could pick up, or perhaps I am working on. And then over here on the right, the details of the case I have selected. So this customer has reported that it appears their generator needs maintenance. They're seeing some warning indicators on the control panel. They gave us the generator type over the phone, so that was noted by the agent. And also noted that the customer has done some preliminary checks. So they've kind of exhausted the troubleshooting that they can do. At this point, the agent might have them try a few more things or do a little bit more inspection in order to see, refine what the problem is, but realizes that, we've got to roll a truck. We have to get a technician out there. Well, in Dynamics, customer service rep can take the detail that they've collected in talking to the customer, running through some preliminary troubleshooting, decide they need to roll a truck, and they can convert that case to a work order via a click of the button. So that takes a second, and what's happening now is Dynamics is taking the details on the case and pushing it over into a work order record so that that work order now can ultimately be dispatched. So I'm going to slip on over to the schedule board here. And notice, this is an example of what dispatchers or managers might be looking at as they're monitoring the field work that's going on. The majority of the screen here is taken up by the swim lanes that represent each of the technicians that are at work out there in the field. And in the main body, on an hourly time schedule in this case, sometimes that time element might have to change, but generally hourly blocks are pretty common. But I'm seeing all of the scheduled work orders for each of the technicians. A couple things you'll notice here. Some of these have a red indicator in the upper right corner, yellow for others. That's an indication of priority. And so as you analyze the tiles on the schedule board, it gives you a bit of data. It gives you the name of the work order, the duration. That little clock indicator that you see in the lower right-hand corner of some of these is an indication that the work order has been scheduled but hasn't been worked on yet. There are other statuses, that indicators that say the work is in progress. And when work is in progress, you see that the color changes as well as the indicator icon. There's even a little tail on some of these, and that's indicative of travel time to get to the location. Now, as I look at work orders, I can click on one of the tiles and I get a pop-up window that shows me a bit of detail, all of which is configurable, by the way. Another summary pane over here on the right. But as importantly, I can see with Dynamics a view of where that work is happening and where my technicians are positioned out in the market. So a couple of visual indicators. Here's a location of a main warehouse. Then over here, I'm seeing work order locations and indicators as to whether or not the work order is scheduled or if it's remaining to be worked on or scheduled or what have you. But basically a status visual to let you know what's going on there. And there's some other various views that you can take advantage of when you think about the schedule board. Down here at the bottom, this is the queue of unscheduled work. You might notice that there are two views of the lists of work to be done. One's called open requirements. The other one is called unscheduled work orders. What you're seeing there is in Dynamics, I schedule other things. For example, I might, in customer service, be scheduling people to work on customer service cases, or I might be scheduling my technical people to go participate in a sales opportunity to do a presentation in front of the customer. So everywhere I need to schedule somebody to do work, whether it be in sales or service or field service, I can handle that and manage it on the schedule board. When it comes to scheduling, I'm going to switch back and show you a couple more slides here. There are a few options as to how we schedule, so we'll be right back to the demo here. But first of all, I want to point out a couple things about the schedule board. So I took a couple screenshots from the other demo instances that I have just to show this. First, in this case, I'd like to point out that here in the tile that shows up when I hover over a work order on the schedule board, I see different details in the schedule board header up here in the green area. So that's configurable. This one's showing who the account is, the work order number, and the incident type. And we'll talk about and show you what incident type means here in a minute. That's basically a definition of all that's involved in that work. And then down here, just different details surface that are important to this customer when they think about how it's going to be worked. So if you think of crossing borders, many customers set up their service organizations by territory. Could be based on state, a metro area, could be based on a sales territory or region. Lots of different dimensions in terms of separating out the crew. And then you can configure crews to work only within their assigned area or outside the area. And most organizations, I'll tell you from my experience, assign crews to work areas, and then they're able to analyze work within that geography. But they also allow those technicians to move outside the area when another area is short and they need help, and I might have a technician free and available to do it. You know, for that reason, we require different views of the schedule board. So if you look up here in the upper right, you might notice that I have the initial public view, the default view, but now I've broken my schedule board down into the various sales or service areas, Tampa and Tampa 2, a broader Florida area, and an area maybe specific to the project management group or the projects group. So examples of how you can change this and configure not only the nature of the schedule board and the tiles that show you work in that quick snapshot view, but also how you lay the work out so it's viewable to the right people at the right time. You know, similarly, this customer, of course, had some differing needs in terms of the pop-ups that show up, but they've also arranged the swim lanes on their schedule board a little bit differently. And this is basically lined up based on the availability of workstations. So you can see the mechanic shop, the pump shop, the blender shop, et cetera, et cetera. So it really is a matter of how you think about your business as to how the schedule board is configured and the differing views that you might have into that schedule from a territory perspective. Now, before we move back to the dispatch board, I want to talk a little bit about the ways to schedule. First of all, there are three within Dynamics. One is I can simply drag and drop, and I'll show you that here in a second. I can find an available spot on the schedule board, drag the work order up, drop it. I can also use a wizard-based method called a scheduling assistant, which basically evaluates the work required and then time availability slices on the schedule board and suggests technicians that could take that work. And finally, there's full resource schedule optimization. Resource schedule optimization is this automation engine, runs in the background, that allows you to automatically best schedule your resources across all job types, across your geographies you're supporting. And what happens is there's data that is consumed by resource schedule optimization, things like location, skills required, territories, restricted resources, meaning some technicians work on only some types of jobs, or perhaps they're restricted to a territory or restricted even to customers. Looks at bookings that are so important that they're locked on the board. We have to do them at that time. looks at things like emergency bookings. Condition red job falls for one of our most important customers, and we've got to get it on the board today. You can take a look at all those data inputs, allows you to define how you would like to optimize, the dimensions across which you'd optimize your schedule. Some of the most common are to maximize the number of work orders per day, or related, minimize travel time, the specification of priority or preferred resources by the customer, a set of constraints across which you want to optimize. And then it looks at the technicians and where they're at on the map. Do they start work from home, or do they go into one of our warehouses or shops? What skills do they have? What territories do they support? Are they tied to any customers as the preferred resource? All those data points and constraints are evaluated by RSO to come up with the best schedule alternatives. And at the end of the day, when you think about field service work, it can mean tens of thousands of dollars on a weekly basis if I can do something like add just a single work order to the 50 technicians that I have in the field across a given day. If you start to do some kind of back of the napkin math, due to time constraints, I won't pull that up, but you start to look at my technicians average 4 work orders a day. I bill out at $100 an hour. The average length of the work order time is 90 minutes, so an hour and a half. You can do the math and figure out if I can optimize this operation and add a single work order. So now they're doing 5 a day on average. Like I say, tens of thousands of dollars, into hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe more at the end of the year. All right, back to the schedule board. We have our set of work orders that had come in. You saw that we just transitioned that one from the customer support call. Well, as I said, I can manually schedule these, and I can simply drag this. Let me grab this high priority one. I can drag that and drop it in an available slot on the schedule board. Or notice when I select a particular work order, this find availability button lights up, and now I can use the wizard to sort of narrow down and view where I can put that work order. Of course, I've picked a bad example there because my constraints were too narrow in order to get that one on the calendar. But that's essentially the option. I can drag and drop. I can manually adjust these things as I need to, or use the wizard. And of course, if I want to use it, I can turn on resource schedule optimization, and that will churn through the work that I have pending, the work that I have on the board today, take a look at the constraints over which I'm trying to optimize, and it'll generate views of optimized schedules that look just like the schedule board. And then if I choose to apply one of those optimized schedules, I just select it, choose it, and it lands on the schedule, re-optimizes for me. Now that we have the work order scheduled, let's take a look at the technician's life. What does it look like when that work order lands in a technician's hands? What I'm showing you here is an example of the field service mobile app. And typically the home page is the bookings page. And this is just, in my case, a daily view of the work that I have to do as a technician. When I see that work, I can click it, and that opens up that booking for me, and I can now say, okay, I am working on it. Notice there are several time slicers here that I can use. So if I charge a different rate for traveling versus working, I can account for that. If I don't get paid when I'm on lunch break, I can account for that. I can use things like I've arrived in order to indicate to the customer that I'm there, and maybe that signals a message to my stakeholder. I can even do things like geofencing and then tracking of the technicians. If I look at the general booking, the general customer tab, you'll see that I have the address of the customer, and then down here a location of that customer on the map. So we can track where our technicians are, and you saw that from the dispatch view on the map view I showed you, so that as technicians get close to the customer, you might use that tracking in order to trigger a text message to say we're about to arrive. Now, when it's time to do the work, technician clicks on the service tab, and you'll see that we've outlined the work to be done on this generator, and that's a series of checks. And with these checks, we have the capability of doing inspections. So right along with that task, I've tied an inspection process that the technician must go through in order to complete that task. But basically outline any work that needs to be done. And as it gets completed, the technician can check it off, and you'll see that it progresses the percent completion across the bar, ultimately to 100%. Down here, under products, well, knowing the type of work that needed to be done, these are the products that are often consumed. So, and an estimated number as to how many. So this is what the technician needs on his or her truck in order to do the job. And they can consume that product as they do it, going through. All the way down to documents. So notice I have a linked document, which is the spec sheet for this generator that we've gone to work on. So this knowledge management solution, document management capability, is built into the system, and it's available to be used by the technician tied to work orders that they're going to go do. And then there are even AI and machine learning components operating in the background around this knowledge corpus, I'll call it, where I can train it by a simple dig it, yes or no, the article was helpful. And now I've trained the engine. Finally, I get to the point where I've completed the work. I can take notes, I can capture photos or videos or even audio or attach files. So oftentimes we take pictures of completed work, or we do a video walk around. I check in with the customer, capture their signature to let us know that it was done, and I can confirm and close the work. That in turn will change the status on the schedule board to completed here in a second, and I'm on to the next job. Okay, now thinking back to the agenda, let's take a look at some of the nuts and bolts of field service. Specifically, what is that incident type record that sort of ties everything together? Now, if I look at a work order, notice that the incident type assigned to this one is a general generator PM. Well, I'm going to open up that record and we'll take a look at what that is actually pulling together. Pretty simple on the general tab, but if you look in a little more detail, the incident type is where we outline the inventory that might be consumed, you know, the types of spare parts or fluids or what have you that we have to account for. Also defines the task list, the things that need to be done to complete this work, including any related inspections that go along with the task. And then, as importantly, the types of skills or certifications that might be required. So in this case, we need a circuit board expert with a fair rating. We need a security clearance in this job to get on site with a particular contractor. Anyway, I can outline these characteristics with a rating value if applicable. Also think certifications if applicable, so that I know that I'm getting a resource who's qualified to do that job. Okay. Now, the other secret record we're going to talk about is how do I set up recurring work, so preventive maintenance schedules. And in the interest of time, I set one up already, an agreement with my customer, Contoso Coffee, to PM their generator on a monthly basis. And so if I dig into the details of this contract, I might look at things like quote and order lines. Notice I can navigate to them here in the tab navigation at the top. I can also look at the booking, the work orders schedule setup, and the invoice setup over here. If I click one or the other, you see the details of this maintenance agreement. It's auto-generating work orders when they're required. It's a normal priority, on-site work location. Estimated duration for each is about an hour and a half. The customer prefers to start at 9 a.m., but they'll accept a window from 8:30 to noon. And they can pre-book -2 ahead of their preferred scheduled date, which is, I think in this case, on the 8th of the month. They'll book 2 days prior to that and accept 4 days after that. So some booking flexibility. We assign the incident type that defines the work type to the agreement so that then passes through to the work orders that are generated. And here are the monthly booking dates that are already generated. And so I schedule when these get generated, how many days ahead of the actual work required date, and then I can react when putting them on the schedule board, -2 or +4 days within a flexible work window, preferred at 9 a.m., but we'll accept 8:30 to noon. And then when I assign a incident type, which carries along with it the service tasks and the types of inventory I might consume, that too then could show up on the agreement. Now, if you look here in these tabs on the agreement, this is where if an incident type isn't applicable, or I want to set up products, tasks on the agreement itself that would then pass into the subsequent work orders, I could do so. I suppose one reason for that is not all customers use incident type. They're more preventive or scheduled maintenance, and so they just define those requirements on the agreement itself, but you can do either. Okay. I think with that, I've exhausted my plan for the demo, but just to recap, we started with a view of what could possibly generate work orders, and then we followed that through to generating a work order, ultimately landing that on the schedule board, and then going out to the mobile app, finding that booking that's assigned to me as a technician, and going out there and completing the work. All the while, the ability to be tracked so that both my customer and the company can know where I am on the map. And as importantly, the system can use my location to optimize things like routing or optimize my schedule if another work order drops. And then we looked at some of the connecting records, the records that make it all happen. That incident type record that pulls in the job type along with the inventory, the tasks lists, and the skills and certifications required. Finally, setting up recurring maintenance, and along with that, recurring billing, where I'm automatically generating work orders to meet my monthly, quarterly, annual PM schedules. And along with those work orders, when the work's done, generating the proper invoicing to go along with it. With that, David, I can turn it back to you.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you for that. So thank you for the demo. Some points that I wanted to make out is everything that Bill showed was native out of the box functionality of field service. Some of the things that he did show, like the inspection sheet, what's nice about that inspection sheet, it's your checklist when you're out there working on a job as a technician, but it can be dynamic as well. In the fact that if certain questions are answered, say, if there's a pressure gauge that you're testing and it's at this certain level, require them to give a reason why, or what actions that they take to lower the pressure or increase the pressure, things like that. So pretty cool tools, especially for the technician. And hopefully you got a better understanding of how Dynamics field service works now. I saw one question come in. Bill, I answered it, but you might want to help out as well. There was a question on, does Dynamics have a chart of financial accounts and general ledger? My
Oh,
answer was no, it does not handle financial transactions, but it does integrate with ERP systems that handle those
yeah,
transactions.
that's an excellent question and a very common one. Probably should have prepared to pre-answer that one, but right, David. The field service, since its outset, it's probably, I don't know, somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 or so years old. That's just a guess, but more than a decade. Um, it was always set up to integrate with ERP. And what I mean by that is accounting is handled in the accounting system, billing, inventory management, generally always handled on the ERP side of things. So field service is built to integrate. So when you saw me generating those invoices for recurring revenue, or if you think about the time and inventory billings that would happen after a technician schedules a job. Field service sets up those list of journals, both time entries and inventory adjustments, to push over to field to ERP. So think billing and supply chain or inventory.
Yep. Thanks, Bill. Yeah, I always look at field service as it consumes products and services. Once it consumes them, it does the actuals and sends over to the ERP system to do the actual financial transaction. All right. Do we have any other questions?
I haven't seen any other questions come in yet, but we'll wait a couple minutes here. And if you have questions, go ahead and enter those in the questions pane. But while we're waiting, I just will mention that we have 2 more upcoming webinars in this series. One is on October 18th, focusing on field work. So we're going to be talking about routing, optimization, geofencing, IoT devices, and how that all works in the system. And then we're going to have another webinar after that on November 1st, really diving into inventory and asset management. I'll make sure to send everyone on the line today information about those webinars and how you can get signed up if you're not on the list yet. And we really want to see you attend again in the future. I don't see any more questions, but if you think of questions following today's event, feel free to reach out to us anytime and we'll get those answered for you. And watch for that follow-up email from me. And with that, I will thank you, Bill. Thank you, Dave, for your great presentation today. And thanks, everyone, for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you.
Thank you all.